Shalom, shalom, everyone. Ariel Tzadok here from the KosherTorah School, found online at www.koshertorah.com. Hey, it's Passover time. It is Wednesday night, the 2nd of April, 2020. 1 week from tonight, we will be holding our Passover Seder. Yippee-ki-yay. Hey, it is an unusual year. This is, the only time that I know of in my lifetime, possibly I can't say since when, that we are in such a global situation. This fear of what is happening now with this pandemic is fundamentally changing our entire world processes. It's really very seriously shaking the foundations of a lot of people in religious life, not just in Jewish religious life, but all. Why? Because people are learning now the greatest lesson of all of the Kabbalah without even realizing that they're learning the greatest Kabbalistic lesson of them all, which is, this should be the 11th commandment. Thou shalt not become so heavenly minded that thou becomest no earthly good. Now, obviously, by putting it in that type of a language, I'm being facetious, but the point is this. This is something I learned years and years ago from my teacher, Rabbi Meir Levi Alav Shalom, the head mikubal, of Rav Mordechai Sharabi's school. And he said, you got to be a normal human being. The highest level of spiritual accomplishment isn't to be some make-believe, high and pious person. You dress differently, you act differently, and you make believe that you're something. That's all well and good for a Purim or a Halloween costume, but that's not real life. Real life is being grounded, down to earth. What does down to earth mean? Now, hey, for those of you who do not already know, in the time of this COVID-19 crisis, I am trying to be there for everybody by offering a daily 20-minute class in the Sefer Yetzirah based upon the teachings of Chaim Vital, but with practical applications. I have just today finished lesson 17. Check them out on Facebook, YouTube, or my Patreon page and see for yourselves if they're worth your time or not. What does it mean to be down to earth? Well, in Kabbalah speak, we live in what's called the Olam HaAsiyah, the world of making, the world of doing, the physical world. And God created the physical world. What expression of God created the physical world? Scratch your head on that one. Gee whiz, what a mystical question. It's not a mystical question, it's right out of the Bible. In the beginning, Elohim created the heavens and the earth. Elohim, as we know in Hebrew numerology, gematria, is equivalent to hateva, which means nature. So natural law dominates and rules this physical world of ours. But you're missing the point. It says in the beginning, Elohim hateva, nature created the heavens and the earth. The earth we just spoke about. What about the heavens? The heavens. They are also, what we call in the spiritual plane, are also guided and instructed and ruled by, if you will, their own laws of nature. And in the Sefer Yetzirah class, I'm talking about the relationship of body and soul, the Sefirot and the letters, and how they form the structures of each world. So, Ramban Nachmani, I talked about this in my class just this morning, lesson 17 in Sefer Yetzirah, go check it out. It says there in Genesis that in Ramban Nachmani's commentary, go look it up, it's available in English, that when God originally created the world, one thing that God created is called the Chiyuli. And this Chiyuli is like the prima matter, the fifth element. And from that came forth everything else. Now, what most people do not realize is that, in quote, everything else, of course, includes this physical universe of ours, but also includes that universe which we call the spiritual, the astral. In Kabbalah speak, Olam ha-Yetzirah. And that the universe of Yetzirah is as inhabited as is our Asiatic world. So, if you were to transcend into the Yetziratic plane, let's say, for example, we could do that. And yes, we can, and yes, we do. Now, I'm going to reveal these secrets that a lot of people don't know. Take a look around you. We're in this world of Asiya. You want to go to the moon or to Mars, Jupiter, Andromeda, or Alpha Centauri, wherever else we're going to go. How are we going to get there in this physical space? Obviously, you got to go from point A to point B in physical space. Now, whether modern science admits it or not, they do know that there are ways and access to go faster than light. They proved this with quantum entanglement of the existence of the speed of thought. They know about, the Einstein-Rosenberg bridges, whatever it's called, wormhole stuff. They know all this is out there. And the Black Project stuff that you and I are not going to know about, they know what they're dealing with, okay? But now, you and me, a couple hundred years in the future, right, when all of this, in quote, modern-day Black Project stuff has been commercialized and we're all using it, we'll be able to go and have lunch on Mars or go to that other galaxy or whatever, okay? Now, in physical space, we transmit or we go from point A to point B. Well, in the Yetziratic universe, if we were right here, right now, let's go off into a meditation right now in this place, and you go off into Yetzirah. Fine. Now we're in Yetziratic consciousness. Real simple, that means just to astral project out of the present state of consciousness into a shifted consciousness, and you're in that domain. Where in that domain are you? And the answer is in this place. You have transcended. You have you're moved in consciousness, but you have not yet moved so much in space. You are in parallel space, but you are not in another space. It's kind of like traveling in a time machine. If you travel in a time machine, so for example, I got my time machine here, a la like H.G. Wells kind of stuff, and I press my time machine button, and all of a sudden I'm 100 years in the future, 100 years in the past. I'm not going to pop up all of a sudden in the middle of France or Israel or in the Hawaii, I'm going to be right here. Because movement in time does not mean movement in space. Well, movement in consciousness also does not mean movement in time or space. So when we transcend and shift consciousness, we end up where we are right now. And where we are right now is either a good place or a bad place, because the astral energy of what we call this, in quote, Yetziratic reality is experienced through what we understand, well, Chaim Vital refers to as the klipa, the husk, the shell. We call it the subconscious. Think of it as rose-colored glasses, as how we see the other side. So this is why the first step in any transition from point A to point B in the astral or consciousness plane is to clean out the chametz, if you will, along the way. For those of you who don't know, I have a very righteous young rabbanit, and she's, I tell you, she can clean up in the afternoon. She doesn't pay attention to me. She's out there cleaning, doing whatever because she understands deep inside the spiritual ramifications of things, and that's important. And that's important for all of us to understand. So when we want to talk about actual contact, Most of my peers love to do a good day's talking. I love to tell you all about things. Well, you know what? I'd rather not talk about things. I want to show you how to see things for yourselves. I want to help you clear those rose-colored glasses so you can see clearly. Now, granted, no one can see absolute clarity. What we see in the old language is called the especloria she'ena mi'ira, the unclear mirror, if you will. We see a reflection of that yitziratic reality as it is received through the funnel, the channel of our limited human minds. And just in case I sound too high and sublime or mystical, let me just bring it down to earth. You all experience this every single day, and you know it. We call it dreams. Did you ever notice dream language is not the same as verbal language? If I want to make a point to you now, speaking verbally, I am going to communicate with words and describe what I'm saying, and you will comprehend and understand. Dream language ain't like that. Go back into the dreams of Pharaoh in the days of Joseph. Pharaoh is having dreams about stalks of corn. He's seeing cows. Go back, or I should say, to the book of Daniel. Nebuchadnezzar, he's seeing statues. And everything is seen in a symbolic language. This is what we call in psychology an archetype. An archetype is the pictorial language of what we call in Kabbalah the Yetziratic world. The Yetziratic world speaks its own language. Remember I said it's under the laws of its own nature. And it has its laws as we have ours. And just like we have our language, it has its language. So the language of the, in quote, astral plane is required understanding if you want to communicate with the astral plane. So, for example, go back into biblical prophecy. And many a time you will see the prophets are seeing symbolic images. And they go, what the heck? I have no idea what the heck this is. I'm seeing books, I'm seeing scrolls, I'm seeing this, I'm seeing that. And the angel will turn to the prophet and says, do you understand? And the prophet, what the heck? I don't understand anything. What is all of this? And the angel then has to get through to the mind of the prophet and through telepathic imprint expose the prophet's mind to the meaning of the imagery that the prophet is seeing. Now, this is something that we, believe it or not, also experience. Not as regularly as an everyday dream, but every now and then. How many of you have ever had what we call a vivid dream, a powerful dream, where you wake up and you go, wow, what the heck was that? And you have such a vivid dream in your mind with such recall. It's like a movie you just saw. But yet, if you look at all the parts that you remember, it's not a literal message that this is going to happen. It's not going to tell you tomorrow at 10 o'clock, this is going to happen. It doesn't work like that. Just like we see through biblical example. But the imprint in your mind is just as important. Now, in the Gemara, in Tractate Berachot, we have an entire section of teachings about dream interpretation. If you go onto my YouTube channel and you go into the search bar and you look for dreams, the classes from the Gemara on dreams, I'm pretty sure are up there. I think I posted them. If not, I'll make sure there are. Check it out and email me at Ariel Tzadok at gmail.com just in case you don't find them, but I'm pretty sure they should be up there. But anyway, it's important that you understand the nature, the reality of the fabric of what we're dealing with. Why? So that when we take the jump from the explanation thereof to the practice thereof, you have some frame of reference. And I always give the example of learning how to drive a car. as it is here in the United States. If you want to learn to drive a vehicle, the first thing you do is you get the manual and you read the rules of the road. And then you take a written test, which then gives you a permit. And then you get behind the wheel and you learn how to drive. But as you're driving, you know what a stop sign is. You know how to make a right turn and a left turn and all the rest of those practical necessities. When it comes to meditative ascent into the Yetziratic experience, we pretty much follow that same pattern. You have to, in quote, have the manual first so you know what you are experiencing as you do. You need really to have a direct communion with a Rav. Because when you don't, things can get messed up. Let me give you a realistic example, very practical, something I just found out today, actually. As I was preparing this class in the meditation, which I'm going to share with you in this class, I went online. I was looking to see what other meditations other of my peers are offering. And well, what do you know? I found a website and a class where someone was taking my teachings and using them in their name, not making any reference to any source that I created. Now, how do I know that they got it? Because I know my stuff. I know the things that are revealed to me that I develop and I materialize and I put out there on the copyright and the like. Now, I'm not saying this because I'm going to go and get people who violate copyright. I'm not into that stuff. Unless someone actually like plagiarizes and steals something. And I'm not going to accuse anybody of that. They say, how does they say that flattery or imitation is the highest form of flattery? You know, if they take my stuff, I'm honored. But at least use it correctly. I was very frustrated that they didn't do that. They took the meditation that we're going to learn tonight and they use it wrong. Now, what makes it right and what makes it wrong? Well, it's kind of like learning the rules of the road. I mean, you know, if you want to make a right turn, you turn on the right directional. Well, I want to turn on the left. Well, it doesn't work that way. Who says? Well, when you drive on the road, you'll see it. But if all you do is deal with theory, then no, you won't. So this is why the Kabbalists have always said you need to have a direct teacher. And I've been trying to do that. You know, for those of you who sign up with our school and become supporting students on a monthly basis, you know, the one thing I always ask is for you to be actually in contact with me personally. I want to get to know you as a person. I want to be able to share with you, talk with you, interact with you personally. And when you have questions about your experiences and stuff, no, don't text me. If we need to, we introduce stuff with an email. Then we pick up the phone, we talk. Good old school style. And this way, we actually get to make progress. We talk down to earth, malchut. We take all that Yetziratic laws there and we merge it with the laws of Asiyah and Yetzirah and Asiyah, or Tiferet and Malchut, or the Holy One, blessed be He, and the Shekhinah, Tiferet and Malchut, whatever set of metaphors you want. How about using the Oriental metaphors? Yin and Yang, they all work together as a concentric whole. Like it says, in the beginning God created the heavens and the earth together. So that is the secret of Yichud, of how we merge things together. And when it comes to our spiritual practices, rather than do a good day's talk, we do a good day's practice. And this is really where we're at right now. Because so many people now are suffering under the stress, the pressure of this coronavirus global threat. And for those of you who look around, because many people made the terrible mistake of misguided faith, saying, I am not in this world, I am above it. I believe in the power of God and spirit, and therefore whatever God wants to happen is fine with me. So if God makes it happen, then I don't have to worry. I don't have to worry about a thing. Whatever God wants will happen. Well, that is the mentality that caused many people to literally walk into Auschwitz and the concentration camps, thinking, well, if God didn't save me, they don't recognize the absolute necessity that real faith requires of us real action, requirements of practical, down to earth applications. And that is the issue here. So today, many people in the religious communities made this terrible error, saying, we don't have to worry about the social distancing. We don't have to worry about minyanim because God will protect us. Well, when you say that, you're expecting, because your mind is in the higher realms, that the laws of Asiyah, the physical world, are going to be abrogated for you. God doesn't violate the laws that God itself, you got to call God an it because it's not a he really, made. Right? These are the divine laws of nature. So as spiritual and holy as you are, the definition of that spirituality is being grounded, normal, recognizing the way of this physical world of Malchut and bonding with it properly, practically, and safeguarding ourselves. And because people did not do this, disease is running rampant amongst them. It's a shame, but it's a wake-up call. And thank God we're not dealing here with the bubonic plague, the Black Death, where death rates are 50, 60%, or the death toll would be more than catastrophic. We couldn't handle it. But this is a wake-up call for us to get grounded. And I think in every storm, as they say, there's the silver lining kind of stuff. Well, this is it. We can get grounded. We can return to a normal state of affairs with actual and realistic spiritual experience. I'll share with you something. I daven privately, without a minyan, every day, and I've done so, believe it or not, for over 40 years. Even when I lived in Jerusalem, I prayed without a minyan, b'yichidut, because I did not like the energy, the spirit, the environment of people's prayers that were so noisy, loud, insincere, that it created an incongruent energy that actually distracted what I was trying to accomplish in my focus. Only when I would daven in places like Bet El with Rav Kaduri, Rav Darzi, Rav Hadaya in the day did we actually have that focus. But here we are. And I tell people that, I've actually written about this. You can go online to KosherTorah.com, put in the word davening or daven, and I document the halachic and Kabbalistic sources. Why? It is actually better to pray alone with kavanah, as we call it, than to be in a minyan without. Yeah. Rahamana libabae. God requires the heart. God requires of us sincerity. And in that respect, if you cannot have that focus and depth in a minyan, then it's better than you have it without it. So for me, this was not a problem. But for people around the world, all the rabbis, even the great Ashkenazi leader, Rabbi Kamenetsky, has said, you can't do that now. You can't be in a minyan now because we can pass on this virus. We might be individually healthy. It's not going to affect me, blah, blah, blah. But you might affect the other guy, who might infect the third guy, who might die. And you become a link in the chain of the angel of death. That's a big deal. Don't do this. Many people now are forced to pray by themselves. It's easy to open a book and say words, but how many can truly and sincerely experience the presence of God, the divine, and turn their prayers from a ritual daily observance into something actually spiritual? Well, that's what we need to do. So when we want to talk about being normal, grounded, and down to earth, it does not mean not spiritual. On the contrary, it means authentically spiritual. One of the greatest spiritual times I had with my teacher, Rebbe Meir Levi. Again, he was the top student, Rab Mordechai Shirabi, the head of the Mikubalim in Eretz Yisrael in the day. The greatest spiritual times I had with him is when we would ride the Kav Hamish Esrei autobus into Katamonim and go to the Shuk and Mahne Yehuda and buy the vegetables. Those of you who know Yerushalayim, you know what I'm talking about. And we had the most normal time. Rebbe Meir, God rest his soul, would remind me of like Yoda from Star Wars. He was always full of pithy statements. He was always full of jokes. And we always had a great time. That's why I learned to be normal, as opposed to many people who, again, tried to be so high and sublime. And when it comes to now the practice of meditations, it is not to bring us up as much as to bring the lights down. That's what it's all about. Now, with this introduction, I want to share with you an essay. I wrote this, 1995, how many years ago? 25 years ago. the version of it that I came out with 18 years ago. And it's in my book, Life Cycles. I forget the name, we're going to change all these names as we print them. But it's my lessons of Passover. I call it to ignite the fire and to remember freedom. What, of course, is the purpose of Passover? Remember the lesson of Passover. Passover is a time not only when we acknowledge freedom, but the Haggadah itself says that one who does not see oneself as if one has personally come out of Egypt has not fulfilled the obligation of the remembering. Well, how can I say that? Come on, I remember. I read the words. I remember, right? Remembering is not an academic experience. It's an intuitive awakening. It's remembering that which you've always known, but maybe have forgotten. It's the reconnection to the Yetzirah, into the Asiyah, just like we've been talking. That's what real remembrance is. We all remember what happened in the Exodus. Children of Israel go forth. God brings them out, brings them Mount Sinai, gives them the Torah. Year goes by, and he says, all right, let's send the spies. And they come back, and they freak out. We can't do this. Essentially, God said, I throw up my hands. With the sin of the golden calf, people made a mistake of the intellect. I get that. That's okay. We'll deal with that. But with the fear in the heart, God, as if washed his hands, says, nothing I can do. It's as if God said, I can bring the people out of Egypt, but I can't take Egypt out of the people. And because of the people who inside themselves refused to remember the real essence of freedom, they had to die in the wilderness. God couldn't do anything with them. God, the Creator, couldn't do anything because the people locked themselves into this little rigid framework. Where we are at right now is shaking the doors of that rigid framework, forcing us to awaken. So this section of this teaching right now is most auspicious for us to practice. So, to ignite the fire, remember freedom. This is a printout from the book. Again, go onto my website. You'll see the cycles of the year on Passover and stuff like that. I think it's $14 for those of you who are interested in all the lessons and essays on Pesach. It's there. I'll put like a little reference here in the notes on the Facebook, YouTube, and all that. So if you're interested, you'll be able to, hopefully with a click, be able to pick that up. I want to read to you some words of Rabbi Yosef Haim, the famous Ben Ish Hai of Baghdad, based upon a pasuk, a verse, that's in this week's Torah portion, Parshat Tzav, Leviticus chapter 6, verse 6, where it says here, Eish tamid tukad al hamizbeach lo tichpe. In English, a continuous fire shall burn upon the altar. Do not extinguish it. This is what the rabbi writes. Quote, it appears to me with the help of heaven that the human heart is called an altar. Therefore, the altar was the heart of the people. In addition, the treasury of Torah lies within the heart. Therefore, the middle letters of the written out form of the Hebrew word for heart, lev. Lev is spelled, of course, lamed bet. But if you spelled out the individual letters, lamed would be spelled lamed mem dalet. Bet would be spelled bet yud tav. The middle of lamed would be the mem. And the bet would be the yud. If you look at all the letters, actually, it spells out the Hebrew word tamid. And tamid, spelled again, the tav, the mem, the yud, and the dalet. This is a hint that the Torah should be placed within the heart tamid, or continuously. It should never disappear from there. Even at times when one is asleep and is dreaming, one should speak words of Torah within one's dreams. This is the meaning of the verse in Song of Songs, I am asleep, but my heart is awake. The Torah is called fire, according to Gemara Masechet Ta'anit. Behold, all my words are fire, says Hashem. And this is why it says a continuous fire shall burn upon the altar of the heart. It should never be extinguished. Of this, the verse says, she reasons that her merchandise is good, her light is not extinguished by night. Now, I have the commentary here for those of you who want to read it from my book, but the rabbi introduces to us a very, very special message here. We all know what it's like to study Torah when we're awake. Take a book, open it up, recite the words, look at it. How many of you can study Torah, read Torah in your sleep? How many of you can control your dreams as you are dreaming? Vivid dreaming, active imagination in the context of dreams? Well, this is a technique that we cultivate to experience, because this is something that indeed we can learn to do. When we talk about bringing this yitziratic, this heavenly experience, again, not us rising up to heaven, bringing heaven down to earth. This is the most important thing for us to recognize. What we call Torah is not just words on the page in a book. As it says in the old Midrash, in the beginning God gazed into the Torah, and from the Torah created the universe. Well, if all the universe comes out of the Torah, then everything in the universe contains the Torah. And therefore, no matter where and what and how and why we look and gaze, the Torah is everywhere to be experienced. That is the underlying message here. Where is this Torah? What is it? It's far more than just words on a page. It's, if you will, that laws of nature. Indeed, the Zohar teaches something very profound. That the Torah is actually an energetic emanation of God in this world. Call it, if you will, the hand of God. And that gets very symbolic, because we refer to the mighty hand of God, the strong hand of God, the outstretched hand of God in the Passover story. And the Hebrew word for hand is yad. Yad, you have a right yad and a left yad. The numerical value of the Hebrew word yad, yud dalet, is 14. Well, 14 and 14, so you have a right hand and a left hand, together is koach, power. And obviously, if you want to do something physical, you have the power in your hands. You also have the power in your mind. And this is the great secret here of, if you will, speaking Torah in your sleep. Now, let's dispel the mythology of that. You're not going to actually go to sleep, memorizing something and thinking that you're going to dream about, reading verses of the Tanakh or the Gemara or even Zohar and memorizing it, in your sleep. No, that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about connecting and communing with the greater energy of that other universe, which we call the Yetzirah. Where is it again? dramatic pause for you to think. It ain't out there. It's right here. Now, this is my own personal belief, and I'm not the scientist that I can validate or invalidate this. But as we know, in the reality of the atomic experience, atoms are as distant from one another as planets are in outer space. That's a lot of space. What's in between all that space? Personally, I suspect other particles that make up a complete parallel universes. And maybe that's dark matter or dark energy. I can't speak in the scientific context. But I do know from our Torah context that when we shift in consciousness, we don't end up far out there. We're right here, just one step over. And you see the reality of this world, your reality, in a deeper and greater sense. And just as that other world is inhabited, you might become aware of and sensitive to the presence of others who are there watching you. Yeah, the Bible calls them watchers. But there is curiously some very, very special watcher that each of us needs to be introduced to. This is something very important. Remember, we talked about our levels of consciousness. Now, having a higher level of consciousness is not something that's actually developed. It's not like you go to the gym and you pump iron, and you build your muscle from this to there. No. Those other, in quote, levels of consciousness are already there. They don't have to be built. They don't have to grow. They're already there, right here, right now, in full operation. Well, how come I am not connected to those higher levels of my own consciousness? That's a good question. The answer is because you don't clear out the chametz in between, the subconscious, the klipot. And that is what the meditative process is really and actually for. Now, for those who understand the real application, this is what we call sometimes in Torah the Kabbalah Nivuit. Some people, this is Maseh Merkava, some people have actually called this magic, even ritual high magic. Well, the purpose of all of these rituals and stuff is not to contact the spirits or do this other kind of mumbo jumbo. It's to connect with the inner energy. What inner energy is that? It's not that energy that's out there somewhere. It's already in us. And it's removing the stuff that's in between so that we have the flow. Or, as we've been saying, to bring heaven down to earth. We always experience the problem when we think we're so heavenly minded, going up, that we become no earthly good, and we experience the terrible results of that type of mistaken, misguided faith, as we're experiencing today with the people suffering because of it in this terrible, terrible way. And it's that same mistake that was made back in World War II. It was the exact same mistake that was made in the days of the spies. And nature, Elohim, God, nature took its course. And that is what happened. And that's what's happening. We got to do something about this. We got to make a change. So when it comes to Passover, understand and know that there are energies in space and in time that correspond to energies in consciousness. This is what the Sefer Yetzirah teaches us: Olam, Shana, and Nefesh, time, space, consciousness. This month of Nisan is a very powerful month. In the Northern Hemisphere, as we know, this is the springtime, the resurrection of life. Well, there's a reason why, even in the Christian tradition, they chose this time for building the mythology of what, is the foundation of their religion. But we understand Passover as the time of freedom of the mind, freedom of the soul. You will never experience freedom in a social or political way until you first experience it internally, spiritually, and psychologically. And that's just the truth of it. Remember the problem with the children of Israel as they left Egypt. You could take the people out of Egypt, but they couldn't take Egypt out of the people. We have to learn to overcome that mistake. Excuse me. So, practically, realistically, down to earth, that stuff, speaking, this is what we need to do. We need to, A, acknowledge the reality that we can do this. We can make contact with the deeper realities, connect to our own higher consciousness, which we experience as psychic, intuitive reality and experience, cultivating psychic development, ESP, telepathy. Remember, the Torah was given at Mount Sinai in telepathic manner. So we all have this within us. This is developing what we call in religion Ruach HaKodesh, divine inspiration, to ultimately receiving what we call Ruach Nevuah, the spirit of prophecy. Not that God's going to come and speak to you in some mythological way like you see in TV and the movies, but rather you become in touch with the spirit, Ruach Elohim, Ruach Elohim Hayim, the spirit of the living God, by being aware, sensitive to everything that's going on around you. You will know where to go, when to go, because inside you will know. No external voice will need to guide you, because you will remember within you your own inner voice. This is what you need to cultivate. So, based upon the teachings of the Ben Ish Hai, based upon this pasuk, this verse, Eish tamid tuchal al mizbeach lo tichbeh, I developed a meditation, a teaching, a practice that we can perform. This is the one that I saw borrowed, wink, wink, by other parties. But unfortunately, they didn't teach it in the right way. Very, very frustrating. They tried to apply it in a different way. And as Carl Jung would say, the right means in the wrong hands causes the right means to work in the wrong way. That's just, I get very frustrated when people want so much to do something and they spin their wheels because they're not doing it in the right way. And they wonder why it's not working. Well, I'm going to give you a perfect example. For those of you who don't know, many, many years, since I literally was a young teenager, I've been a student of martial arts. Pretty much all my life. Believe it or not, 50 years. And I've practiced different styles, mostly Chinese and the like. And in my 30s, I started studying Bagua Chuan with Master Chan in New York City. And I remember the first day I met him. He was this little short guy, about 5 foot tall, big, fat, round belly. Not exactly a Bruce Lee tough guy kind of guy. And he says, "Oh, you want to learn? Let's see what you got." And he says, "Let's spar and see what you can do." I was in my peak. I was fine, total. And I said, "Okay, let's go." And all the time that I was sparring with him, I couldn't lay a hand on him. Every time I came in with a move, literally just like bounced out of the way, like a bouncing ball. You ever see like a beach ball in the water? He was just bouncing out of it. He never had to block me with his hands, just moving. And I was so frustrated. I couldn't touch the guy. And I said, what's going on here? I'm fast, I'm good, but he smiled and he showed me subtle little nuances in 15 minutes. 15 minutes of instruction with a master. It changed everything I did for 15, 20 years before. Oh my goodness, how humbling an experience that is. Learn from this, that the subtle little things are what are important. So when we talk about this one verse here, okay, I take the letters. I look at the initial letters of the pasuk, the initial letters of this verse. All right, there are 7 of them because there are 7 words. And the letters themselves in what we call mispar katan. Mispar katan is a form of gematria where we drop all the zeros. So if you have the letter tav, which is normally 400, you drop the zeros and it becomes 4. Why do we do that? This is the form that corresponds to the world of Malchut and Asiyah. So it's a common thing done by Kabbalists. Well, if you take the original 7 letters, the initial 7 letters, Aleph, Tav, Tav, Ayin, Hey, Lamed, Tav, okay? These 7 letters become, if you will, like a mantra. Looking at them in numerical mispar katan, the numerical value is, well, what do you know? Koach. And that is the secret of strength. Remember we talked about the hands, the power of the hands? This is how we call upon the sacred and, quote, hand of God to bring down the power. Remember the famous verse in Deuteronomy. Remember Hashem, your God, for he is the one who gives you power to do great things. Koach la'asot hayil. And surprise, surprise, really? Surprise, coincidence? I don't think so. If you look at the last letters of each of the 7 words, again in numerical small value, mispar katan, they're also, curiously, koach. So you have the power of the hands, koach and koach. So you can take these reshe tevot and selfi tevot, as we call them, and you can recite each letter with the vowel of the verse, or fill in a vowel with what's called the petuche chotam, or base vowels of the letters. The one that copied me online actually made a mistake with their vowels, but whatever. This is what happens when you don't follow the right roadmap. And the reshe tevot, etatu, aha, lote. You can recite this as a chant, a mantra. Is this a holy name of God which you are forbidden to recite out loud? Really? Show me where it says that. It doesn't. So therefore, don't make up things that are not there. The Sefer Tevot, Shi Dada Lahe Ahe. Also, this is the secret of power. Remember we talked earlier about the Yetziratic symbolic language? Well, this is why we do things like capital letters and end letters and things like that. Because this takes the concept and puts it into a visual or abstract form, which is how the Yetziratic language works. When you honestly and sincerely are going to talk with a malach is not going to speak to you in English or French or Hebrew or Aramaic, Swahili, Spanish, German, Russian, or any other language. It's going to speak to you in angelic. Angelic is a visual language. It is a telepathic language. It's going to communicate to you symbols, imagery, concepts, ideas. And you got to be able to pick it up. So by taking a pasuk, this verse that says, right, the fire of the altar shall burn forever, right? Continuous fire shall burn upon the altar. Do not extinguish it. What is the altar? Your heart, your essence, your soul. What is the fire? It's the passion of connection. It is the true essence of your soul. And for your soul to, in quote, burn, you have to have that passion, that connection, that desire. And when you do have this, and you speak the angelic language and symbolism like this, and then you recite it as you're going to sleep at night and allow your mind to go to sleep, in quote, speaking angelic, well, what do you know? Your own higher self, or the angelic representatives, the watchers, they see you trying to communicate in their language, and finally, oh my gosh, they're so happy, now they can talk to you. Yes, you can take Egypt out of the person, because the person is out of Egypt. This is the secret now, why we do these things as we go to bed at night. Now I'm going to share with you even a deeper teaching, which I don't put in the writings. Way back in the day, the old Hasidei Ashkenaz, who had a more authentic Kabbalistic tradition than the later Spanish did, what they would do before they would go to bed at night is they would have a little bit of l'chaim there. They would have some wine. Now today, as far as I'm concerned, you can have moonshine. Whatever it takes. You don't want to go to bed drunk, but you do want to lighten things up, open the mind so it's not so rigid. And then when you perform something like this, etatu ahe lote shida da lahe ahe, and hey, you recite it over and over as a mantra, knowing Ribono Shalom, open up for me my heart. And here in the section here, I wrote a prayer that calibrates to this, corresponds to this. Again, you get the ebook, it's in the materials in there. Ribono Shalom, Master of the Universe, I thank you for making me a free man or woman. I thank you for the mitzvot of Pesach. I thank you for reminding me in all that we are indeed free, free from our evil inclination and free from all distractions that separate us. I pray that you continue to shower upon your children your spiritual power and divine light, that we may observe all your commandments in love, awe, and truth. Empower us that we may shine your divine light throughout the world that you have created. Empower us that our hearts be ablaze for you. May your holy names enter into our minds, melt away our dross, all forbidden and mistaken thoughts, all foolish and improper feelings, all inappropriate speech and wrong actions. Bring true redemption upon us, the children who left Egypt, and let us leave our present exiles, both the exiles within us, the exiles surrounding us. Amen. May it be your will. Simple prayer, basic stuff. But remember, you will never be free from Egypt until, let me rephrase that. You will never be, out of Egypt until Egypt is out of you. And this is where we have to address these things today, because we have so much false understandings, misguided information about what is religion, what is faith, what is spirituality. And all of that binds us down, locks us in. We have to remember from within. It's not about what book to read. It's not about what chapter and verse to quote. We need to learn to speak angelic, to speak the language of the Spirit, because as the Ben Ish Chai says, this is how we talk Torah during our sleep. When we speak that language, the language of the soul, and it communicates with us that when we awaken, we don't necessarily have, ready to write a book with clear, knowledge, but you feel something deep within you. It motivates you. It inspires you and it guides you. This is how we make contact. It's as if our souls are being programmed, that the Asiatic consciousness in this world makes contact with the higher dimension, and that higher dimension speaks into us, and as if programs our conscious mind to know, to recognize, to remember what is right, what is wrong, what is right from what is left, what is above, what is below, and teaches us the right way to go. So many of us have had an experience at least once in our life, somehow, somewhere, where in which you say, I know this is what I need to do. I know, I believe it deep within. And you can analyze it intellectually. You can psychoanalyze the emotional component of it. And it might not make any sense. It might be wrong, but somehow deep within you know this is right. And when you have that faith and you walk with it, it might not materialize the way that you think, but it will bring you to the place where you need to be. And then you will know, you will experience that is where the universe, your higher self, the angelic world, God, wants and needs you to be, because that is what we call your tikkun. This is how we speak angelic. This is how we communicate by speaking Torah in the night. This is how we keep the fire burning. So, as I said, I'll put this up. You know what? I'm going to put this essay online. All right? You could read it. It's a section of my book. If you want more, you'll get the book. But I want you to have access to this material. I want you to be able to review the prayer, have this stuff, and see for yourselves. I believe deep within me that this can make a difference for us. No, we don't go around waving magic wands and expect hocus pocus. That is fantasy. But we do experience what's real and put it into pragmatic, practical application. That is the secret of the Exodus. That is the secret of what we experience in freedom and the purpose of reciting the Haggadah. Remember what the word Haggadah means. It means the telling. What are you supposed to do? Well, like we said, remember the story of Egypt. Well, I can just read a paragraph. Friday night, the night of the Seder. Okay, yeah, God brought us out of Egypt. I remember. You don't remember anything. You can recite the entire Seder, and you don't remember anything. Because again, remember it says, you have to see yourself as if you yourself have gone forth from Egypt. In the quick seconds that we have left, one of the things I used to do years ago is I used to tell people, close your eyes, right at the Seder table. Visualize yourself as if you were astral traveling in space and time back to Egypt, sitting there at the moment, hearing the cries and screams from outside, having this Passover meal before you. You're fully dressed. You got your bags packed. You got your walking staff. You're ready to rock and roll. Experience the intensity of the moment and where it's leading you. That is seeing yourself coming out of Egypt. Now that's just a visual exercise. Now, in active imagination, it's easy to do. But then you have to take it to the next step. You can't take that travel and bring it to the point where you're going to regret leaving Egypt and looking towards the Holy Land with remorse. That's what got everybody killed in the wilderness. You got to be a warrior. You got to be a soldier. You got to have the discipline. You got to say enough is enough. I'm sick and tired of exile. And the only way exile ends is when it ends within me. Reconnect. Connect to your highest self. It's already there. You don't have to build it. No magic hocus pocus. Clean out the chametz. Clean out the schmutz. Reconnect. Use this technique of angelic speak. Reconnect. Experience it for yourselves. And once you experience it and you see with your own eyes, then you will know. That's what my entire KosherTorah school is here to try to share and help. So that rather than just academic giving you information, we can walk hand in hand and learn to experience. I hope and pray that that's what we will accomplish. I hope and pray that right now, a week from tonight, when we're doing our Seder, that you'll keep these things in mind and practice. Print this out. Take it with you to your Seder. And after the Seder at night, after you had your 4 nice big old glasses of wine, when you're ready to just nod out, speak a little angelic and see if the angels don't talk back to you. Think about it. Try it. Okay, Ariel Tzadok here from the KosherTorah School. I'm wishing you great blessings. Stay safe. Please, please, please stay smart. Do what you know needs to be done in these times. And that is how we will properly bring the light down to earth. God's blessings. I'll see you all soon.